Listen, I hate to ruin the magic, but Rudolph, she's a girl. Male reindeer lose their antlers in winter, so Santa's sleigh is literally an all-female squad. And that is just the first lie you've been fed. I'm exposing 49 insane myths, like how Jingle Bells is a Thanksgiving song and why the Christmas pickle is total garbage. So before I give you trust issues, smash that like button, subscribe so you look like a genius at dinner, and comment "mind blown" if you didn't know about the reindeer. Let's go. 1. Christmas was actually illegal in Boston because the Puritans absolutely hated joy. In 1659, they decided having fun was a sin, so they banned Christmas entirely and would fine you 5 shillings for hanging a stocking or eating a pie. If you were caught celebrating, you were basically a criminal in the eyes of the law, just for wanting some holiday cheer. Captain Kimball even sat in the stocks for hours just for kissing his wife on the Sabbath, which proves these guys had zero chill. It took until the late 19th century for Christmas to become a federal holiday because America was too grumpy to enjoy it. 2. You probably think Coca-Cola invented Santa Claus because of all those shiny red commercials. But that is a total lie. People think the soda giant drew him red to match their cans. But Santa was rocking the red suit way before Coke started selling sugar water. Thomas Nast was drawing a chubby red Santa in Harper's Weekly back in the 1800s when Coke was not even a thing yet. The soda company just made him famous and consistent, but they definitely did not birth the big guy. Before that, Santa wore tan or green, but the red suit was already a huge hit before any marketing genius decided to slap a logo on it. 3. You really think that creepy little elf on the shelf flies all the way to the North Pole every single night to snitch on your kids? The truth is way less magical because your parents are literally the ones moving it around while you were fast asleep. That time you thought you caught the elf moving mid-flight was actually just your exhausted mother sleepwalking at 2 in the morning, trying to find a new hiding spot. It is honestly just a brilliant marketing trick to make children behave, but really, it is just forcing tired parents to play a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek in the dark. 4. Everyone sings the 12 days of Christmas, thinking it is a countdown of shopping days leading up to the big morning. But historically, the 12 days actually start on Christmas Day and run until January 5th, which is the Feast of Epiphany. That means if your true love actually sent you all those gifts, the 5 golden rings would not even arrive until after New Year's Eve, when you are already hungover. It is a liturgical season from the church calendar, not a holiday shopping deadline. So stop stressing about buying 12 days of presents before the 25th, because you are technically way ahead of schedule. 5. You have probably been terrified to let your dog or cat near a poinsettia plant because everyone says they are deadly poisonous. This entire myth started way back in 1919 because of an unverified story about a child, but science totally debunked it. Researchers at a university actually fed 500 poinsettia leaves to rats, and absolutely nothing bad happened to them at all. You could probably eat a whole salad of these red leaves and just get a mild tummy ache, but please do not actually try that. It is crazy how one fake rumor from a century ago made us all fear a harmless pretty flower. 6. We all have that irrational fear that our Christmas tree is going to spontaneously burst into flames and burn the whole house down. But the reality is that less than 0.1% of home fires are actually caused by the tree itself. The real danger comes from overloading your cheap power strips or leaving dusty space heaters running too close to the curtains while you sleep. Your dry tree combined with ancient lights is a risk, but you are statistically way more likely to set the kitchen on fire trying to cook a turkey than you are to watch your Christmas tree explode. 7. Americans love to claim eggnog as their own creamy holiday invention, but it was actually stolen straight from 17th century England. The British drank something called posset, which was a hot mixture of milk and ale that basically looked like curdled soup. When the recipe crossed the ocean to the colonies, we swapped the expensive ale for cheap Caribbean rum because that was easier to get. Eventually, the name evolved from grog to egg and grog, and finally to eggnog. So when you drink that thick yellow sludge, you are really enjoying a weird British science experiment that we just decided to load up with way more alcohol. 8. People get incredibly angry when they see Xmas on a sign because they think it is a secular war on religion. But the letter X is actually the Greek letter chi, which is the first letter of the word Christ in the Greek language. Monks and religious scholars were using this abbreviation way back in the year 1021 to save space on expensive parchment. It is actually a super religious and reverent way to write the name, so you are technically being more historically accurate than the people complaining. Next time someone yells about taking the Christ out of Christmas, you can tell them they need a history lesson. 9. You think Rudolph has been guiding the sleigh for centuries, but he is actually a corporate invention created to sell coloring books. A department store copywriter named Robert May invented the red-nosed reindeer in 1939 just for a holiday promotion. He was not part of the original folklore at all, and nobody even cared about him until Gene Autry recorded the famous song 10 years later. It is hilarious that the most famous reindeer of all time is basically just a successful marketing campaign that got totally out of hand. We literally built an entire mythology around a character that was born in a department store ad. 10. There is a weird internet rumor floating around that says you can go to jail for stealing a single strand of tinsel. But there are absolutely zero federal or state laws in America that criminalize borrowing a piece of shiny plastic. Even those viral memes about felony tinsel theft are completely made up to scare people on social media. The closest we ever got to a law like this was when Alabama banned imitation Santa suits in the 1930s, but even that was repealed ages ago. You can safely grab a piece of tinsel without the FBI crashing through your windows to arrest you for holiday crimes. 11. You hear Santa go ho 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 and assume it must be some ancient Dutch magic word. Actually, ho is just an old English sound people made when they laughed way back in the 1500s. The Dutch Santa called Sinterklaas started saying it only because English speakers made it go viral worldwide. It is literally just onomatopoeia for a deep belly laugh that we decided belonged to a fat guy in a suit. If Santa was originally Dutch, he would probably be saying something totally different and way harder to pronounce. So basically, you are quoting an English comic book sound effect, thinking it is foreign culture. 12. People say Christmas was illegal in the entire United States until the 1800s, but that is a massive exaggeration. It was actually only the grumpy Puritans in Massachusetts who banned it from 1659 to 1681. Meanwhile, down in Virginia, people had been partying and celebrating since 1607 without any police involvement. The myth that the whole country hated Christmas comes from one tiny group of people in Boston who hated everything fun. So unless you lived in that specific colony, you were totally free to roast a goose. It is just another case of New England trying to ruin it for everyone. 13. You think the war on Christmas is a new thing started by cable news in the 2000s. But the panic actually started way back in the 1950s when department stores began using happy holidays to include everyone. The specific phrase, war on Christmas, was first used on Fox News in 1992, which is way earlier than you remember. People have been freaking out about greeting cards for over 70 years, pretending their holiday is under attack. It is not a modern political battle. It is just a very old argument about shopping slogans. You are basically fighting a war that your grandparents started over a store sign. 14. You go to ugly sweater parties thinking you are participating in some deep and ancient holiday tradition. But two guys in Vancouver actually invented the whole concept as a joke in 2002. It only exploded into a massive trend after a Friends episode aired in 2003 and made it cool. Before the new millennium, nobody wore hideous sweaters on purpose. They just wore them because they had terrible fashion sense. You are essentially celebrating a viral prank from Canada that got out of hand and convinced everyone to dress badly. It is kind of embarrassing that we treat this like a century-old custom. 15. Everyone acts like a single mistletoe berry is a cyanide capsule that will instantly kill you. The truth is, you would have to chew and swallow about 20 of those bitter berries to actually die. If you eat one or two, you might get a little nauseous, but you are definitely not going to drop dead on the floor. Birds eat them like candy every single day without any issues, so they are clearly not that toxic. It is totally misleading to treat a festive plant like a weapon of mass destruction. Just do not eat the decorations, and you will be fine, but you can stop panicking. 16. You demand your advent calendar has exactly 24 little doors, or you think it is broken. But the real religious season of Advent changes dates every year between November and December based on Sundays. The 24-day countdown was actually invented by the German marketing teams in 1908 to sell more cardboard. They realized printing variable calendars was too hard for factories, so they just standardized it to make money. You are strictly following a manufacturing schedule instead of the church calendar just to get your daily chocolate fix. It is pure capitalism disguised as a holy countdown, and we all totally fell for it. 17. There is a running joke that fruitcake is indestructible and will outlast humanity in a nuclear apocalypse. While the alcohol does slow down, the rotting process mold will absolutely grow if you leave it on the counter. That one famous 100-year-old fruitcake you heard about was actually sealed airtight in a lead box like toxic waste. A normal fruitcake will only last about 6 months before it turns into a science experiment. So if you are eating a cake from 3 Christmases ago, you are just eating old booze and bacteria. It is not magic preservation. It is just a lot of rum hiding the taste of decay. 18. You sing Jingle Bells while decorating the tree, but you are technically singing a Thanksgiving song. It was written in 1857 for a Sunday school program in Savannah, Georgia, of all places. That means it was composed in the hot South, where there was 0 snow on the ground for sleighs. The song was so catchy that people just kept singing it past November until it stuck to Christmas forever. You are belting out a tune meant for Turkey Day, written by a guy who was probably sweating in the humidity. It just proves we will steal any song if the melody is good enough for a party. 19. You might be afraid to sing carols because someone told you that you need a permit. Technically, a city could cite you for noise violation, but there are literally 0 cases of carolers getting fined. Police officers are not going to arrest a group of people singing Silent Night on a sidewalk. The only time they might stop you is if you are screaming at 3 a.m. and waking up the neighborhood. It is a total myth that you need a license to spread holiday cheer in public. Just do not be annoying, and nobody is going to call the cops on your festive singing group. 20. You probably think the Yule Log TV channel started in the 80s when cable got big. But it actually first aired way back in 1966 on WPIX in New York City. The station had to fill airtime during a strike and had absolutely nothing else to show, so they filmed a fireplace. It became shockingly popular because people apparently love watching wood burn for 3 hours straight. It had 0 actors and 0 plot, but it beat the ratings of actual shows. We have been staring at a fake fire on a screen for over 50 years, just because a station ran out of ideas. 21. You think gingerbread houses came straight from Germany because of the Hansel and Gretel fairy tale. While the story from 1812 inspired the idea, the actual tradition of building them really exploded right here in America. German bakers made heart-shaped cookies, but Americans were the ones who turned it into a full architectural project in the 1890s. We obsessed over the fairy tale so much that we started baking edible cottages just to copy the witch. So while the story is European, the act of gluing candy to a roof with frosting is largely an American obsession with sugar. 22. You imagine Santa running a happy workshop where elves sing and work for free forever. But in 1939, a group of department store elves in Toledo actually formed a labor union to demand better pay. Santa actually crossed their picket line, which is definitely not very jolly or supportive of workers' rights. It turns out even magical helpers need a living wage and a lunch break during the busy season. So the idea of a perfect workshop is a total lie, because even the elves in Ohio were ready to strike against the big guy for a paycheck. 23. Every Thanksgiving and Christmas, you blame the turkey for making you pass out on the couch. You claim it is the tryptophan, but turkey has the exact same amount as chicken, and nobody naps after eating nuggets. The real reason you are in a coma is because you just ate 4,000 calories of carbs and drank 3 glasses of wine. You are crashing from a massive sugar and fat overload, not because of a specific amino acid in the bird. Stop blaming the poor turkey for your lack of self-control, and just admit you ate way too much pie. 24. You think electric Christmas lights were invented specifically to make your tree look pretty. Thomas Edison's assistant did string bulbs on a tree in 1882, but people were using dangerous gas lights way before that. Before electricity, crazy people literally clipped lit wax candles onto dry pine branches inside their wooden houses. It was basically a fire hazard waiting to happen until the electric bulb came along to save us. So the invention of lights was less about decoration and more about stopping people from burning their entire neighborhoods down with open flames on trees. 25. You heard the heartwarming story that Silent Night was written because the church organ broke on Christmas Eve. It is true, the organ failed, but it happened on December 23rd, and they wrote the song for Mass the next night. Also, this happened in a tiny village in Austria, not in some American church like the movies show. They needed a song that could be played on a guitar because the big pipes were busted. It was a last-minute fix for a technical disaster that accidentally became the most famous carol in history. 26. You stress out about hanging your stocking exactly before midnight on Christmas Eve, or Santa will skip you. There is absolutely no ancient rule saying you have to do this by a specific time. The Dutch left shoes out weeks earlier for St. Nicholas Eve on December 5th, not the 24th. The modern American stocking tradition was actually pushed hard by Gimbel's department store in the 1930s to sell more socks. You are following a rule made up by advertisers who just wanted to make sure you bought extra fabric to hang on your fireplace. 27. You see the nativity scene and assume the 3 wise men arrived the night Jesus was born. The Bible actually says they arrived way later, when Jesus was a young child living in a house. King Herod ordered the massacre of kids up to 2 years old, which implies the wise men had been traveling for a very long time. They definitely did not show up at the stable with gold while the shepherds were still there. Your front lawn decoration is combining two completely different timelines just to make the scene look crowded and expensive. 28. You think the names Dasher and Dancer are ancient names passed down from Viking mythology. Actually, a guy named Clement Clark Moore just made them all up in a poem in 1823. Before that, nobody knew what the reindeer were called or if they even had names. And Rudolph was not even in the squad until 116 years later, when a store invented him. We treat these names like historical facts, but they are really just rhymes from a poem that got super popular. It is kind of funny that we memorize them like history. 29. You sit at your desk expecting a Christmas bonus like it is your constitutional right as an employee. There is zero federal or state law that says your boss has to give you an extra dime. Unless it is written in your contract that verbal promise of a Santa bonus means absolutely nothing in court. You could work harder than anyone else and legally get a jelly of the month club membership instead of cash. Stop banking on that money for gifts because the law does not care about your holiday spirit or your empty bank account. 30. You tell your kids that their letters go straight to a magical desk at the North Pole. In reality, the United States Postal Service runs a program where volunteers in local offices answer those letters. Santa does have a marketing address in Alaska, but it is just a P.O. box with the zip code 99705. The replies are written by regular people who just want to help keep the magic alive for children. It is a sweet system, but it is definitely run by the government mail system and not by magical elves. 31. You are convinced the government banned old school tinsel because it was poisoning everyone, while the old stuff was indeed made of lead, which is terrible for your brain. There was never actually a law banning it. The manufacturers just voluntarily switched to plastic in 1971 after the FDA issued a polite warning. It was a business decision to avoid lawsuits, not a federal raid on your holiday decorations. So, if you find heavy silver strands in your grandma's attic, do not eat them, but you are not holding illegal contraband, just some vintage toxic metal. 32. You see stores advertising the 12 days of deals starting on Black Friday and think that is the official countdown. But the 12 days actually begin on Christmas Day and end on January 5th, which is the dullest time of the year. Retailers completely hijack the terminology just to make you spend money before the holiday actually arrives. By the time the real 12 days actually start, you're already broke and tired of shopping. You're letting a marketing gimmick rewrite the calendar just so you can buy a discounted toaster in early December. 33. You eat a slice of mince pie thinking it will bring you good luck for the new year. That is actually an old English superstition that the American Puritans tried to ban because they thought it was pagan nonsense. In 1897, the New York Times even wrote a crazy article claiming mince pie caused hysteria and wild behavior in women. We basically ignored the luck part and just kept the pie because it tastes good. You are eating a dessert that used to be blamed for making people go legally insane. 34. You threaten your kids that you are checking the naughty list online like it is a public government database. There is obviously no such thing, but in 2013, a Florida town posted a fake list as a prank. It went totally viral, and terrified parents actually thought their kids had been marked as criminals by Santa. It was just a joke that got out of hand because people believe everything they see on the internet. You are using a non-existent list to blackmail your children into cleaning their messy rooms. 35. You buy a plastic Christmas tree because you think you are saving the forest and helping the environment. The truth is that real trees are crops that absorb tons of carbon dioxide while they grow on farms. Your fake tree is made of PVC plastic and shipped across the ocean, and it will never decompose in a landfill. You would have to use that plastic tree for over 17 years to match the carbon footprint of just one real tree. You are basically decorating a giant piece of pollution while thinking you are Captain Planet. 36. You assume kissing under the mistletoe is a polite British tradition we stole from stiff English people. It actually comes from rough Viking mythology about the god Balder coming back to life. Americans really only started doing it because Washington Irving wrote about it in his essays in the 1820s. He loved making up traditions, and we just blindly followed him because we wanted to be like the cool Europeans. You are basically acting out a Viking resurrection myth every time you try to sneak a kiss at a party. 37. You hear Jingle Bell Rock and think it is a completely original masterpiece from the 1950s. But Bobby Helms actually borrowed the melody from a song called My Grandfather's Clock, which was written way back in 1876. There was even a lawsuit about it that had to be settled quietly out of court. You are dancing to a recycled tune that was originally about a ticking clock stopping when an old man died. It is amazing how we turned a sad song about death into a rockabilly holiday classic. 38. You scream at the cashier that you have a legal right to return your gift without a receipt. There is absolutely no law that says a store has to take back your unwanted sweater. The Federal Trade Commission says stores can set whatever policy they want as long as they post it on the wall. If the sign says no returns, you are legally stuck with that ugly pair of socks forever. You are fighting a minimum wage worker over a policy that you were too lazy to read in the first place. 39. You think Santa needs magic dust to fly, but you also want to believe in science. Physics says his sleigh would vaporize instantly if he moved that fast through the atmosphere. But the US military actually tracks him using heat-seeking missiles and satellites through the NORAD program. They have been treating Santa like a bogey on the radar since 1955, just to keep the story alive. You are mixing impossible speed with serious military technology just to explain how a fat man delivers toys. 40. You assume the very first Christmas card was printed in America because we love sending mail. But the first commercial card was actually printed in England in 1843 by a lazy guy who did not want to write letters. Americans did not catch on until the 1870s, when a German immigrant named Louis Prang mass-produced them. We were actually late to the game, but we made up for it by sending billions of them. You are keeping a British tradition alive just because a German guy wanted to sell fancy paper. 41. You might think throwing eggnog at your relatives is just a rowdy Southern tradition, but it actually started with the military. The most famous historic brawl happened at the U.S. Navy Academy in 1862 when cadets spiked their nog with forbidden whiskey. It turned into a massive fistfight that got so bad, the administration had to ban alcohol completely in the 1870s. We revived the tradition, ironically, today, but originally it was just drunk future sailors fighting over a bowl of milk punch. You are basically reenacting a military court-martial every time you get wasted on nutmeg and rum. 42. You love telling people at parties that Christmas is just a stolen version of the Roman festival Saturnalia. While that sounds smart, historians say December 25th was actually chosen to compete with the sun god Sol Invictus. Early Christians debated the date for centuries and likely just picked it to hijack the existing winter celebrations. It was less about Saturnalia and more about co-opting a sun-worshipping holiday to make Jesus look more powerful. So you are not really celebrating a pagan orgy, you are celebrating a strategic marketing move by the ancient church to gain more followers. 43. You are terrified that the police will write you a ticket if you leave your Christmas lights up past January 1st, while your annoying homeowners association might threaten you with a fine. There is no actual city law enforcing this. Pasadena, California tried to ban old lights in 2008, but they had to retract it because people got so angry. You can legally leave your tacky decorations up until July if you want to be that guy. You are letting a nosy neighbor with a clipboard scare you into taking down your hard work way too early. 44. You bite the head off a gingerbread man, thinking it is just a cute holiday cookie shape for kids. But the tradition actually started with Queen Elizabeth I, who had her bakers make cookies that looked like visiting dignitaries. She was basically serving her guests edible caricatures of themselves, which is a massive power move. Before her royalty, people just made heart shapes or stars, but she wanted to eat her enemies and friends. You are participating in a weird royal ritual where we consume the bodies of important people just for a sugary snack. 45. You are scared to say ho 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 in a video because you think Disney or Coke owns the copyright. While you can trademark a specific drawing of Santa, the sound of laughter itself is completely in the public domain. The only laugh you actually need to worry about is Frosty the Snowman, because that specific sound is legally protected. You can bellow like Santa all you want, and nobody can sue you for being jolly. It is ridiculous that we live in a world where we even have to wonder if a laugh is intellectual property. 46. You cry watching movies about the 1914 Christmas Truce, thinking every soldier on the front line stopped fighting. In reality, it was only sporadic pockets of soldiers along the Western Front who actually paused the war. The High Command was absolutely furious and banned it strictly by 1915, punishing anyone who tried to be nice. It was a rare moment of humanity that the generals immediately crushed to keep the killing going. You are romanticizing a one-time event that the military worked very hard to make sure never happened again during the rest of the war. 47. You leave out 3 cookies thinking that is enough fuel to get Santa through the entire night. But scientists calculated that visiting 300 million homes would require about 22,000 calories per second. He would need to eat 1.5 billion cookies just to keep his sleigh in the air without crashing. If he actually ate all that sugar, he would explode before he even left your neighborhood. You are essentially feeding a pilot a mild snack when he needs the energy of a nuclear reactor to finish his job. 48. You scream, "Deck the halls," thinking it is the ultimate Christmas anthem about decorating your house. It was actually a Welsh song from the 1700s called Nos Galan, meant specifically for New Year's Eve. The famous Effalala lyrics are just nonsense syllables because the original words were about drinking and flirting. Also, the line about gay apparel just meant happy and bright clothes before the 1960s changed the meaning. You're singing a drinking song about a completely different holiday and pretending it is about the birth of Jesus. 49. You think Santa Claus, Indiana is the official headquarters of the North Pole operation. The town was actually just a regular place that renamed itself in 1925 specifically to trap tourists. The post office gave them a special zip code to handle the letters, but the real North Pole is technically in Alaska. It is just a brilliant marketing stunt by a small town that realized they could make money off your holiday spirit. You are visiting a tourist trap that changed its name just to sell you overpriced souvenirs in the middle of summer. So there you have it. Your entire life is basically a giant lie designed to sell you candy and plastic trees. You have been kissing under parasites and terrifying your children with fake laws about tinsel theft for years without even knowing it. Do yourself a huge favor and hit that like button right now, or Santa might just accidentally skip your house this year. Make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never get tricked by history again. Also, share this with your family so they stop freaking out about eating poinsettias and ruining the party. I want to know the truth in the comments below. Do you actually wait until Christmas Eve to buy your gifts? Or are you one of those weird people who start shopping in July? Tell me your secrets. If you had your mind blown by these lies, you have to click this video on the screen right now to find out what else history got totally wrong, because it only gets crazier from here.